Welcome back to Cask and Point. Today we're doing a video that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that is drinking every single Four Roses single barrel strength. Now this is going to be a two-part video as I didn't want to do all 10 at once. Now I did do that for the Wild Turkey Master's Keep, but those were much closer to 100 proof, somewhere in the 90s. They weren't really pushing it, but some of these are going to get pretty high. They're going to be in the 110s, they're going to be in the 120s, and so I thought we should probably split it up. I think that would be a little bit better for my own sake. So today we're doing the OEs. Now, before we begin, I'm going to explain the recipe distinction a little bit for those that aren't super familiar. Four Roses has a 4-letter code on every single barrel strength that they have. Now, these single barrel strengths come in two variants. Either it's a store pick, and it's chosen by a particular either liquor store or a bar, some sort of shop, anywhere that can really pick an entire barrel of whiskey and then go and enjoy that whiskey. Or it's a gift shop, which is a master distiller's pick, which basically means that Four Roses determined this is a particularly good barrel, so we're going to sell it in the gift shop. Those are usually $99.99, and then the picks can range anywhere between $90 and I've seen them as high as $120, but some may even be growing in price right now, so we'll see. But you have those picks, and now what the letter combination actually means is you have O, which just means that it's from the it's from the Four Roses distillery. Yes, why is it O and not F? I don't know, but it's O, and that means it's Four Roses distillery. You then have a 2-letter option. You have B or you have E. B means that the mash bill is going to be 60% corn, 35% rye, and 5% malted barley. E means it's 75% corn, 20% rye, and 5% malted barley. Which is to say that B has 15% more rye, and it replaces corn that would be in the mash bill for OE. And so the OBs should have a little bit more rye spice and those kinds of flavor and tasting notes versus the OEs that are probably going to be a little bit more fruity. You then have an S that's on all of them, and that S just signifies straight bourbon whiskey. Obviously, these are all straight bourbon whiskeys. They're meeting those very basic requirements. They're aged way more than 2 years, which is what you need to be a straight bourbon whiskey, but it's just an extra signifier. But then the fun is that there are 5 yeast strains: V, K, O, Q, and F. Now, Four Roses actually changes their order on how they explain these. On the barrels, you will see a little tag, and those tags will list them as V, K, Q, O, F. However, if you go on the website, it lists them as V, K, O, Q, F. Why are O and Q swapped? Who knows? We don't know. At least I don't know. And so it's a little bit confusing, but essentially, you have V, which is delicate fruit, K, which is a slight spice, O, which is rich fruit, O, which is floral essence, Q, which is floral essence, whatever that means, and then F, which is herbal notes, whatever that means. And so your Ks should be obviously your fruitier ones, and O should also be super fruity, rich fruitiness. K, probably the more spicy end of things, and then Q and F are going to be your herbal, your floral, stuff like that. Now, what this actually means is that when you combine them together, Four Roses also gives you a general flavor profile for the 10 recipes. And so since we're doing the OEs, we'll explain the OEs today, and we'll do the OBs another day. With OEs, we have OESV, delicate fruit, fresh and creamy, OESK, spicy, full body, OESO, fruit, red berries, specifically in parentheses, and medium body, OESQ, which is floral, rose petal and acacia, banana, refreshing, and medium body, and then OESF, which is mint, fruity, and full body. So, today I have these in the order that they are on the website: V, K, O, Q, and F. And to make your life a little bit easier, at some point on your screen, I'm going to just say which one we're tasting at all times, and possibly even the tasting notes, just so you have a little bit of an idea, because I know this is a little bit confusing to follow. But essentially, you have those 5 yeast strains, you have 2 different mash bills, you combine the 5 with both of the mash bills, you have 10 different recipes, all the single barrel strengths. Now, it gets even more complicated than that, because then there are tiers. So, like warehouses and floors, which is an attribute that we have on, say, Old Forester single barrel strength, where we know the floor of the whiskey, we know the warehouse of the whiskey. Four Roses does that, but what people really care about is the floor, which is also known as the tier. So on every single barrel, there's going to be a code. Now, it's going to have the alcohol/volume, that's going to be somewhere in the 50s or 60s. You're going to have the warehouse number, which people actually don't really talk at all about. And then you have the barrel number. Now, the first number just signifies the barrel. The second number after the hyphen, that is what is important. That is the tier. And then there's a letter, and that letter doesn't actually mean anything. Well, it obviously signifies like where the barrel is, but it doesn't mean anything for the purpose of like, differentiating between barrels. But the tier, so this is a tier 5, and then these 3 are tier 6s. And that basically means that it was aged on the 5th or 6th floor of the respective warehouse. And this is very important because tier 1s, tiers 2s, tier 3s, they're going to be lower in proof because it doesn't get as hot on the lower floors of a warehouse. And since it doesn't get as hot, the whiskey doesn't interact with the oak as much, and so you're not getting as much of the barrel aging that's going on. So you can have a little bit less flavor, less ABV, just kind of less of everything. Whereas the higher tiers, you're going to get a lot more flavor, a lot more punch, you're going to get a higher ABV. Tier 6s tend to range in around 120 to 128 proof. I've seen some that are a little bit higher than that, but they're really never going to be that much lower. And then obviously, going down, you can probably subtract about 3 to 5 proof points per floor, maybe 2 to 4. And so by the time you're at tier 1, you're looking at maybe 105, 110, depending on the different recipe. That was a lot. But now we're going to actually drink some whiskey, because this is a whiskey review channel, not just a talk about whiskey all day channel, which I could do all day. We have 5 here today. Now, I've seen a few reviews on the OBs and the OEs, and the problem with all these reviews is that they use all these different tiers. And so they're comparing a tier 6, which is super flavorful and 128 proof, to like a tier 2 that's like 115 proof, and even if a certain recipe is better than another, how is it going to compare? And so I have more similar tiers today. These are all tier 1 to tier 3. And they're all going to range between 104 and 116 proof. And this is because Q and F tend to be lower proof whiskeys, especially at the lower tiers. You're looking at like the 105 to 110 range, whereas the tier 1s, 2s, and 3s on the OE, Ks and MVs and Os tend to be a little bit higher. And so, without further ado, we're going to start with OESV. I'm drinking a 114 proof 8-year, 11-month. This is a tier 2, and this is from a good buddy of mine named Adaris, who's actually my first subscriber, so thank you for that. This is his barrel. He was kind enough to share a sample of it with me, OESV, and like we said, if we check our little barrel code, this is delicate fruity, fresh and creamy. Let's see what we get. I am definitely getting a lot of fruit here, red cherries, plums. Definitely getting a butter cream to it. Not really any oak at all on this, actually. And, I mean, it is a about 9-year barrel strength whiskey, so I would expect a little bit of oak, but there isn't really much of that. Definitely getting a lot of fruit. Definitely getting some of that creaminess to it. Not really getting a ton else. There's a slight tinge of rye spice, but not really that much. Obviously, tons of caramel on this. Caramel, red fruit, and some butter cream. A little bit of ethanol heat, but not a ton. But let's try this and see how it is. Wow. Yeah, it really, all of those notes come through on the palate. The finish, it's still going. I'm still getting cherries and creaminess. I'm very impressed how long that finish is. Now, this is 114 proof. This is a tier 2, like I said. And so obviously there are going to be tier 6s out there that are going to do way more punch. But that's actually very flavorful and definitely getting the delicate fruit, the creaminess. I'm definitely seeing that. It's red cherries, it's plum, butter, cream, no oak, no toast, none of the kind of barrel char that I would expect out of a whiskey that's this old. I'm going to give it to them. This VE strain is definitely very fruity. I believe Bruzel said that this was his favorite recipe. And so I can definitely see the appeal. It has all the kind of innocent fruity flavors to it. It's not a ton of spice. It's a very enjoyable pour, actually. I'm impressed by this to the point where, I mean, honestly, I would say this is on par with like lower tier stag batches, maybe slightly worse, but really, for $100 bottle, I think it holds its own So really, really a fan of this one. Thank you, Adderus, for the sample. I'm gonna take a second sip, and then I'll go through, and then we'll do K. But it's great. That's really good. Yeah. Medium to long finish. I mean, I'm almost thinking long finish here. It's really going on for a while. And just cherries and cream and butter. That's what you're getting on this pour. It's not, to be fair, where it's losing points is that it's not super complex. Like, I'm not getting a bunch of different flavors on this, unfortunately. I'm not getting like 10, 15, 20 tasting notes. I really think it does 5 or 6 really well. And so this is kind of what I've heard with the barrel strengths. Now, if we go to the good old limited editions here, where they've blended these barrel strengths that are somewhere between like 12 and sometimes up to 20 years, that's where we're getting a lot more complexity with the tasting notes, and we will do a review on that one day. But these single barrel strengths are really the punching, above their weight class, I think, in price, or at least holding their own, and really giving you a lot of a few flavors, which sometimes you want. But that was OESV. That was some people's by far favorite. Let's see how the rest hold up. Now we're going to do K. Now K is the slight spice, and if we check our note card here again, OESK is spicy and full body. Now full body, medium body, I always associate these as wine terms, as if you didn't know, I'm also trained to be a sommelier. Really for no good reason other than I wanted to, so I am. And so, obviously, full body versus medium body should mean that there's a good amount of flavor on this. But let's cleanse the palate, and then let's try OESK. And I don't have a backup glass of water, so I might have to go and run and grab some more at some point, but that'll be in a little bit. Right now, we are trying OESK, a 115 proof, 8-year, 9-month, tier 3. Now, I'm going to be honest. For the life of me, I cannot figure out who sent me this sample. I've gone through every sample I have, which is approximately 400, and the tag that's on it is different than every single other sample I have. I don't have another one with that sticker, meaning that I don't really have another one to compare it to perhaps remind me. I have no idea who sent me this. Thank you. I hope it's good, but really just no idea. But anyways, it's 115 proof, 8-year, 9-month. It's a tier 3. And so, obviously kind of staying in the tier 1 to tier 3 range, like I said here. On the nose, definitely getting way more spice, but there's still a lot of red fruit here. Wow, I mean, this is really nice. There is some much more punch on this one. It's a much more pungent nose. Definitely getting all the spice. And what was it? Was it just spicy and full body? Yeah, it's just spicy and full body. It doesn't give us anything else. But there is red fruit on this one. Some plums, some cherries. The fruit is pretty similar to OESF. Definitely a little bit less fruit and a lot more spice. Which honestly, so far on the nose, I'm liking a little bit more because it's just adding an extra dimension that doesn't exist on OESF. But let's try OESK and see what I think. Wow. The finish actually isn't nearly as long. It's a mix of fruit and spice. And that's kind of what I expected. Now, I have tried a lot more of these recipes. This barrel actually has a special place in my heart because this was the first really good whisk I ever tried. And it actually started a friendship with a good buddy of mine in Dallas that I still talk to, hang out with, and call all the time. Really good friend of mine. There was a shop nearby that was doing this pickup. It was actually a bar. And then he bought me a few pours. We were hanging out. We were having a good time. This was OBSK. And it was basically, look how much spice and fruit is on this bottle. Absolutely amazing. OE is obviously going to have a little bit more fruit and a little bit less spice than the OBSK. And honestly, I'm liking it a little bit less because of that. But, we will try all the OBs at some point. Probably next week from when you're seeing this. But this is fruit and this is spice. There's a little bit of that butter and a little bit of that cream, but not much to it. There isn't really any oak or toast or anything like that again, which is odd to me because this is still a near 9-month barrel strength product. And so I would expect a lot more oak on something like this. This isn't like it was aged in Canada or anything. This is aged in Kentucky. So I would expect more, but no, it's giving me fruit and it's giving me spice. I'll take one more sip and then we will move on, but let's see here. It's close with the OESV. Definitely liking it a little bit less though. I think the V just did the fruit thing really well and it mixed it with the butter and the cream. This is kind of giving me like towards the late palate. I'm actually getting a little bit of tobacco and pepper, which I don't totally mind, but the red fruit goodness is completely gone. I'm getting some spice here. This is definitely spicy. I'm going to give them that. And I can only imagine how most OBs are if that's even more spice. Now, obviously, I love this OB, but maybe that one was a particularly good batch, or I should say barrel, since these are all single barrels. But I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of that one. It's still a great pour. It's still probably mid-sevens, but it's not blowing me away in the way the OESV did, which I'm pretty surprised because I thought spice would be much more up my alley than just a bunch of fruit, but we'll see. Next, we're going to do O. Now, O is rich fruit, and if we look at the OESO here, it's fruity, in parentheses, red berries, and it's medium body. And this particular OESO is a 116-point proof, so the highest proof that we have here today, and 9-year, 9-month, and it's a tier 3. So, again, kind of in that 9-year range here, in that, tier 1 to tier 3 range here, and actually very similar in proof to these first two. So, cleanse the palate a little, and then let's try this. It smells nice. It smells nice. Definitely smells fruity. Definitely getting the cream, the butter. This is a little bit toasty. Like I'm finally getting something that is at all reminiscent of oak. But not a ton of it. Definitely caramel. There's caramel on all of these. But honestly, it's pretty simple. Like I can't smell this for an hour and pick up different flavors. There are 4 or 5 flavors on here. That's really it. The cherries and the plum and the toast and the caramel and a little bit of cream and butter. But that's really it. I think there might be a slight tinge of tobacco, but really not much. Definitely, all of these have been a little bit more simple than I was hoping. But let's taste it and see how it is. Oh, wow. Getting a lot more fruit on this one than I was on the OESV. But it does also ramp up the creaminess a little bit. But the finish isn't that long. For some reason, this OESV finish was much longer, and the red fruit just kind of stayed in my mouth a lot longer. Now, I will go through these once again and rate them all, but that's, again, giving me very similar flavors to OESV, but just a little bit worse because it's not giving me nearly as long of a finish. It has a similar flavor profile there. I mean, I think V and O are supposed to be the most similar. V is delicate fruit. This is rich fruit. Definitely seeing the punchiness of the red cherry, red plum. Maybe a little bit of like black plum in it. Maybe some like blackberry, some raspberry in this. Definitely a ton of fruit on it. But again, that's not necessarily better or worse. You know your palate better than anyone else. Maybe just based off of these, how they sound, you could probably make a pretty good bet on what you would like. So far, they've been 3 for 3 on their descriptions as to what the tasting notes I'm actually getting. And that could just be a little bit of like placebo effect. I'm telling myself this is what I'm tasting and therefore I'm tasting it. But that's kind of how whiskey is. That's why I don't, blinds are cool sometimes, but also if the knowledge of what a whiskey is makes it a more enjoyable experience to me, that's what I care about the experience. I care about how good a whiskey tastes. And there is a lot of placebo effect in this stuff, but I am going on a tangent here. This is a solid whiskey. Liking it more than the OESK right now. I'm going to take one more sip and then we'll move on to Q. Very smooth. Almost like a candy fruitiness to it. Cherry candy, a little bit of spice, a little bit of tobacco, very little tobacco. Almost like it oak, but I don't want to say oak because it's very, very, very little oak. Like a sweet oak, which is nice. It's a good pour. It's not blowing me away. I think it's second right now. Definitely getting the rich fruit on this one, but it lacks complexity. So far, these have lacked complexity. I'm hoping to get, 3, 4, 5 really good things that are mixing together in my whiskeys. These are kind of just giving me fruit and a little bit of cream, and then obviously OESK was giving me spice with a little bit of fruit. I want more, but we're going to try OESQ, which is the floral essence. Essence, not floral notes, not anything like that. Floral essence. And OESQ here, floral, rose petal and acacia, banana, refreshing, and medium body. So it's refreshing. So I should be refreshed once I try this. That's what it says. If I'm not refreshed, it's false advertising. Never heard refreshing as a tasting note before, and these are meant to be tasting notes. So pretty interesting to see what they mean by refreshing. Definitely gonna need a little bit more water, but I'll get to that. Oh, that smells nice. The red fruit is all there, but there is that floral. Yeah, definitely getting floral notes on this. Definitely getting kind of like a lavender. Caramel and cherries are obviously still dominant here. That butter and creaminess is there, though. There's just an extra element on this one. And I am getting a little bit of banana, I will say. It's a red, there's a lot of the cherries and the plums, but there is an additional fruit here. Definitely getting banana, like honestly, Old Forester banana and Jack Daniels banana. This is surprisingly reminiscent of that. Oh, that's by far the best nose. Because it's giving me the same fruity, fruity, creamy flavors, but it's also giving me some floralness and a different fruit to it. I can't say that this is particularly refreshing on the nose, but I'm going to taste it, and let's see how refreshed I feel. This smells promising. Yeah, a lot of those notes come through. And actually, it tastes refined. Now, we are getting, when we get to the Qs and the Fs, these tend to be aged a lot older. These tend to be closer to 11 years in a lot of the barrel proofs that I've seen. And these are both 11 years. Although this is a tier 1. This is a 108.6 proof, 11-year, 3-month tier 1 from a good friend of mine named Bit. And obviously, thank you, Bit, for this pour. It's very enjoyable. And the interesting thing enough is that although it's tier 1 and it's 108.6 proof, this is a lower proof, but it's a higher age. And I think that's kind of the Qs and the Fs, that's just kind of their shtick. They usually have a little bit lower proof, but they'll make up for it with a little bit higher age here. I think I have some tier 6s here that are OESQ, I believe. Well, I have an OESQ here, a 9-year, 2-month. Wow, so actually much younger than this one. But it's 124 proof, so that will be interesting to try. And then I have an OBSQ here that is 11 years and 2 months, and this is 125 proof. So it's pretty interesting here that one is a 9-year OESQ. But this tier 1 is 11 years. I guess maybe at 9 years they just said, oh, it's good enough. It's aged long enough. It's high enough proof. Let's get it out of there. But I'm not getting a ton of oak anyways, even for that 11. This doesn't taste 11 years old. But there is a lot of complexity here that's really making up for that lower proof. I really am impressed by this. This is first or second right now, but let's take a second sip and see if I change my mind on anything. It's nice. It's complex. Look, there's lavender on there. There are floral notes on there. If you hate those kinds of notes, you're not going to love this whiskey. But I take it as this is an extra element to a fruity and creamy whiskey. And the finish is medium length. It's not overpowering me. It's not going on forever. A little bit of like lingering like pepper, but it's like a light pepper. Like it's not the typical like pepper for the next 5 minutes. It's kind of like a pepper mixed with like cream, like almost like a heavy cream, buttery, and so a light, soft pepper. But it's really nice. I think that is definitely going to be in first or second place so far. But let's try this OESF. Now, OESF, let's check our tasting notes here, is mint, fruity, and it's full body. So, expecting a lot of body on this one. This is specifically a 104.6 proof, 11-year, 7-month Tier 1, and this is also from my good buddy Adariz, so he gave us the OESV and the OESF, so thank you, Adariz. I know you're watching this video up to this point, and I appreciate that a lot. Now, this is a Tier 1, and again, it's old, and wow, does that smell fruity. It's actually really nice. There is a little bit of mint there, but I'm getting, honestly, the banana that I was getting on the OESQ, that's definitely here. The red fruit, the cherries, the plums, a little bit of, there's obviously caramel, there's a little bit of toast, a little bit of oak. Honestly, it's also a really nice nose here. Probably first or second compared to this OESQ. I'm actually going to compare these side by side. So that's giving me a lot more of the cherry and the caramel, and then a little bit of lavender and a little bit of floral notes. This one is doing a lot more of the floral notes. Now, this is technically herbal notes according to the Four Roses tasting notes. I agree 100%. I am going to cleanse my palate a little bit more here before I taste it, but this is it actually smells really nice. And I will say, post OESQ, I don't know how refreshed I feel, but it was good. But on the nose here, this is smelling like it's going to be top 3. But let's try it. Wow. So much more flavor. Oh my god, that's what I want in a whiskey. My mouth fills with flavor. There's lavender, there are herbal notes, there's caramel, there's spice, there's red cherries, there's plum. So much more flavor. That is definitely full body compared to everything else. Way more flavor on that one. And again, this is a Tier 1, 104.6. I am shocked that this is 104 proof. And in fact, it's actually pretty light for an 11-year barrel strength whiskey. But man, that is good. I really like that one. And again, if you hate herbal notes and floral notes, you should stay to the the V's and the O's and the K's. But this Q and this F really giving me a lot more bang for my buck, I think. Way more flavors on this one. I think the only one that's really competing them at all is the OESV. I will go through once more and give some ratings here, but I'm really liking this OESF. This is a surprise. I was expecting to think a lot less of these because they're lower proof, but that extra age is just giving them so much more flavor. I can only imagine what like an 11-year. I guess I said I had an OBSQ, I think here. That's like 11 years and 100 something proof. So that's gonna be a fun one. Or I say 120 something proof. But anyways, take one more sip of this. Then we're gonna rate it. We're gonna go backwards in the rating system, like we always do, and we're going to give it some numbers, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll talk about my favorite recipe of the OEs. Now, I have tried all of the recipes before, there's a Four Roses tasting kit, and this Four Roses tasting kit is definitely something I would totally not recommend whatsoever. I know you thought I was going to say I was going to recommend it, but honestly, based off of that information, I thought I hated Q and F, and I loved, I think, OESK. And so right now, OESK is towards the bottom. So I'm just going to say 104 proof whiskey that's probably all like 8 years, and then like a plastic bottle, if I remember. It might be glass, I don't remember. I wouldn't waste your money. For $100, buy a bottle and sit with that bottle. Enjoy that bottle, enjoy that 120 proof, have a good time, and then go to your other bottle, and then go to another one if you can afford. But it's just not worth it. Total waste of time and money. This is totally different than what I had expected coming into this, only having tasted those OEs from the tasting kit there. Anyways, one more sip, and we'll give it a rating. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of the whiskeys that I have that I take it over. I take this over Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Proof Rye. That's 7.6. I take this over Stag 23B. That's a 7.6. So this is at least a 7.7. And the amount of flavor, the thing is the finish isn't long. That's what's killing it. That's what's stopping this from being an 8.2 or an 8.3 or an 8.4. And obviously at this point, I mean, you've seen videos where I've rated whiskeys that high, and they just have to have this much flavor is good. That full bodiness is good, but I need a longer finish. This is medium finish at best. It may even be short to medium. Actually, we'll take one more sip since I did do 2 sips of everything, and then I'm going to rate them on the third. So I'll rate this on the third sip as well, but it's looking like that 7.7 right now. I really like it. Yeah, 7.7. I stand by that. It's a very solid whiskey. I'm surprised. I mean, 11 years and 7 months. I guess they just left it in the barrel because it was tier 1 and they totally forgot about it. But that's a banger right there. That for $90, $100, I would take that. I think that's an interesting pour. I think it gives you a lot of flavors. And even honestly, this lavender and this kind of tobacco spice and pepper, it's still going. The red fruit does die out a little bit. So look, if you just want red fruit on your Four Roses, which I think Bruzel in a video recently said he just wanted only fruit, fine. Avoid OESF. But I look at whiskeys for what they are. I like it. I think this is a great whiskey. I think this is something that I would rate much higher than just a daily sipper. 7.7. Now let's do some OESQ. Now once again, this is 108.6 proof, 11 year, 3 month, tier 1. Yeah, a lot more fruit compared to the OESF. A lot more fruit on this one. Again, this is floral essence. So they give us some essence, a little bit of floral, but this is still gonna give you all that red fruit and cherry. And if we go to OESQ here, yeah, there's still banana, refreshing, medium body. Compared to the OESF, there's definitely a lot less body in this OESQ. Let's sip it and let's give it a rating. The finish is a little bit longer. There's more fruit on this. There's a lot more of that kind of good creaminess and butteriness, a little bit of floral. And because of that, I actually think it's slightly less complex. It's actually, I think, a lot more similar to an OESO than an OESF, where it's good, but I don't think it's as good as the F. I think it's very close. I do really like how there is more fruit on this, and there is some of that banana, and there is some, like, there's more complex fruit on this than I think any other one. And so, if you're not just going for how much fruit there is, but the different kinds of fruit, this is going to be your favorite. But I think that it's just a less complex pour than the OESF, but they're so close. They are neck and neck. I'm going to rate this 7.6. Right now, it's in second place, but obviously, I mean, these three are going to change things up a little bit here. And I'm running a little bit low on water, but we'll see how long this lasts here. And really get the water in all the places in your mouth, because the whiskey went in all those places, and you don't want that to affect your next sip of whiskey. Very technical with my whiskey. Now, this is OESO, 116.8 proof, 9 year, 9 month, tier 3. So much more food on this, on the nose, but nothing else. That's where it's going to fall short. It's a ton of fruit, but there's nothing else to it. When I had first tried the OBSK barrel here, the greatest thing about it was that it was spice and fruit working together. That was such a sweet pour at 124 proof and a ton of spiciness to really give it a lot of body. Where OESO is falling flat is that it's just this rich fruit. It's just, I mean, this is going to tell me, what is it? Fruity red berries, medium body. That's it. No spice, no nothing. And that's its problem. And actually, out of curiosity, what is OBSK here? Rich in spiciness, full body. Whereas OESK is just spicy. I know. We will try some samples in the future of the OBs, probably next week from when you're seeing this, and we'll see. But it's good. I just kind of wish there was more there. But let's take this sip and let's give it a rating. It's a ton of fruit, a ton of butter, a ton of creaminess, but it's simple. It's really simple. And to the point where it tastes under 117 proof, which is not something I typically say because I like really high proof whiskey. And so typically I try 130 proof and I say, oh, this tastes 120 proof. But 117 proof to taste like, honestly, closer to 110, maybe even 107. Some may find that enjoyable. I mean, this is just a fruit bomb, and you know, if you like your fruity flavors and you like 107 proof, this OESO is going to be much more up your alley. But honestly, I'm not impressed. I think it's a 7.5. Again, it's close. They're all close. Whenever I do these flights, I always worry that people are going to see very similar numbers and think, he just rates everything the same. I don't rate everything the same. They're just, when we're doing flights of 4 rows of single barrel strength and different yeast strains on the exact same mash bill, and around the same tiers, like, they're going to be close. Everything's going to be close. But I understand the fruitiness on this one. It's a lot of rich red fruit, but it's just not that complex. Let's try some OESK, 115 proof, 8 year, 9 month, tier 3. Now, this did not impress me on the first time around. I hope it's going to do a little bit better here. But we're going to find out. So, swirl this around a little. And I do really like these glasses, by the way. One day, if this channel blows up and I have an affiliate link, I'll send the affiliate link of these glasses. Would highly recommend them. I think they're really good for 1 ounce pours. I think if you get any more than 1 ounce, they're just totally impractical because the whiskey will just spill out. But I think for 1 ounce, they're really nice because a normal Glencairn, you're just not going to fill up as much of the percentage of that glass, and so the nose is going to be a little bit worse here. I do think the nose is technically better on this one, but I may have to look into the science on that. Again, and that's for 1 ounce or half an ounce or something. If you're having a good 2 ounce pour, I would take Glencairn all day. But anyways, there's some red fruit and there's spiciness. There's not much else. There's a little bit of creaminess. There's a little bit of toastiness. Let's take a sip. Let's rate it. Whew. That's spicy. Yeah, red fruit and spiciness. That's what it does. It's surprisingly more spicy than I would have expected. I would have expected a lot more of that red fruit to come through and then some spiciness. But that's giving me a ton of spice, caramel, and then it's finishing with like a tobacco and a long peppery finish. You know, on one of these previous ones I said it's like a soft pepper. No, this is just pepper on this OESK. I think I like it more than the OESO. I think it's more complex. I think I like it less than the OESQ, so I will set these up in that order. So I'm really surprised with these F and these Qs. I thought that they were going to lose, and honestly, I loved this OBSQ barrel, so I thought this OESK, I love this OBSK barrel, so I thought this OESK would do well, but it's not coming through. It's simple. I think it needs, like, if it had that floralness or so, like some additional tertiary characteristic to it, but you're going to give me spice, you're going to give me fruit, you're going to give me nothing else, and you're not going to give me that much of those two things, you're not going to do those things particularly well, you're going to score in the sevens. So it's a 7.6. It actually will tie the rating of OESQ. It's not that different, but I think it is a little bit worse. So let's try OESV. Now this blew me away on the first sip. I was talking all this. It's high sevens. Sucks we didn't get an 8 here. I did rate this one an 8 for what it's worth. So there are 8s out there, and honestly, for $100, an 8 is a solid price. And honestly, for these, I really wouldn't mind paying MSRP for them. I don't think secondary is particularly high on them, though I couldn't really recommend paying that much more than that, in a store. If they're charging $150 for their barrel of 4 roses, unless it's a tier 6, I don't know if I'd bother. But anyways, let's smell this. So, tons of red fruit and creaminess. That's what OESV gives you. And it's good. It's very good. Yeah, no, 114 proof, 8 year, 11 month, tier 2 from my good buddy Adder is here. Let's take a sip, And let's give it a rating, and let's find out how the 5 stack up against each other. It does the fruit so well. It gives me so much fruit. And the thing is, it is a little bit simpler than Q and F. But what it does well. It gives me fruitiness and creaminess, and look, that's all it gives me. And so I cannot rate it higher than 7.7. Look, it's at least top 3. These are the bottom 2. OESO is my least favorite. OESK is right under that. Again, these are all really good pours, and they're all really close for what it is worth. And that was by design. I mean, I want to try the different recipes, and I want to do similar ones. Look, I've seen 4 Roses single barrel strength flights, and then they just throw in a tier 6 in there. And it's like, really? Really? Oh wow, the tier 6 won. I'm so surprised. I'm not looking at you amongst the whiskey. I love your page. I love your page. I thought the bracket that was done was awesome. But really? Anyways, this is good. I actually think I'm gonna have to take an extra sip of this and an extra sip of the OESQ. I think the F is the winner here. But I'm confident in these last 2. But we are gonna do a little more tasting here. And let's see, I'm scavenging for my last few, maybe ½ ounce of water in there. But it's fruity. It's so fruity. It's fruit. It's cream. If you want fruit, you want cream. 7.7. It's a solid pour. I would pay $100 for that. And I wouldn't think twice about it. I wouldn't pay that much more than that. But if I was at a liquor store and they had me try their barrel pick, and that's what it tasted like, I'd walk out with a bottle. I wouldn't buy a backup or anything. It's not that level. That's good. That's very good. Let's take a sip of water. We're going to try some OESQ. Keep saying the wrong letters here, but I think that's what 4 Roses wants you to do with their 5 different yeast strains here. And a fun fact about the yeast strains, there actually have been some studies about kind of what the very similar yeast strains that MGP does out of Indiana. And so Nancy, I forgot the last name, I think Nancy Fowley, something like that, the master distiller of Joseph Magnus and their cigar blend, all hers, absolutely amazing. She actually talks a lot about how the Q yeast strain, which is something that they tried out in MGP, and it's actually really hard to get old Q yeast strain that's MGP, but they were able to get some of that in, source it for their cigar blends. It's a really cool article. I'll link it in the description. It's actually, I think it's worth it. It's a long article, but if you're curious about justifying cigar blend and a little more of the Q yeast strain, definitely look into that. But it's cool that actually 4 Roses actually agrees in the yeast strain and kind of the letter. I don't know that much about yeast, but it is cool that 4 Roses gives us this kind of information because, you know what, we are all a little bit of scientists. People always tell me that my setup looks a little bit like a laboratory, and I do like that because the whiskey, I mean, it's all science at the end of the day. We put grains into a barrel, and it came out this amazing. Anyways, I am getting off topic here. Let's try this OESQ. It's a better pour. It's a better pour. I think it's second. It just gives me a little bit more complexity. And that's what I like out of it. It's still relaxing. It's still giving me a ton of fruit and cream, but then it's adding a little bit of floral. It's giving me that floral essence, as they say. And again, OESQ here, what does this say? This floral, banana, refreshing, medium body. I think the OESV is also medium body. I mean, it doesn't describe the body here, just as delicate fruit, fresh and creamy. I mean, I guess they're both fresh, but I think the OESQ is better today. And again, these are all single barrels. Maybe something is different. I will try, with the last sip of water here, I will try this last OESF, make sure it's the winner, and then we'll call it in. I'll finish these off camera. But really impressed today with the OEs. Yeah, I mean, there's actually a little more fruit on that than there was on the first time around. I mean, a ton of herbal and floral notes. Not to the level of, like, a willet, but it's definitely there. And I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. But let's try it. Let's see. That's the winner. Yeah, I didn't need that much time on the palate there on that one. It's more complex than everything. It wins because of its complexity. It gives you the fruit and the creaminess and the floralness and the herbalness. That's why it wins. I think I'm satisfied with these ratings. OESF is in number 1. OESQ is in number 2. OESV is in number 3. OESK is in number 4. OESO is in number 5. And again, everybody's ratings may be a little bit different on these. I think the best thing that you can do is, obviously, if you could try all 10, try all 10. If you get people, friends to send you samples like I do, I think that's the best thing that you could do to try all the recipes. But honestly, these were all really good. Nothing disappointed me today. I didn't have a bad barrel today. Maybe there are bad barrels of Four Roses out there, but today we didn't get any of them. And we had some tier 1s in here. And those tier 1s were first and second. So, I don't know. But anyways, I don't want to keep you all here too long. But thank you all. If you made it to the end of the video, definitely, please like the video. Because that definitely helps out the algorithm a little bit. Maybe get me a few more subscribers and a few more likes and all that. And then one day, maybe, we could do our own Four Roses barrel pick. I think that's the dream right there. I think if we could do a Four Roses barrel pick for the channel, I know I've made it. But anyways, thank you all for watching. Have a lovely rest of your day. Drink some Four Roses. I have the 4 right here. And fun fact, another one. On the newer barrels, they actually put 4 roses on the cap here. I'll zoom in there and I'll see in the older ones they don't have that. So I'll make sure there's a photo there if you couldn't see that on the camera. Pretty cool. But anyways, that's 4 roses. That's 4 roses single barrel strength. Those are the OEs. Next week, the OBs. We're gonna do those. Those are gonna be fun. But thank you all for watching. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I will catch you all in the next one. Thank you.